Aarhus, Denmark, a library that has received the prestigious Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Access to Learning Award. Rolf holds a master's in librarianship and a master's of digitization and public government from Aarhus University, and has a very long career as an international speaker and writer on library-related issues. Rolf, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Aris. I will start sharing my screen and the presentation that I have prepared. Rolling here. So all the images that you're going to see are from my library back in Aarhus and shows some examples of how we have been working with community engagement in general. So this is from our main area in the library. And I'll just start with the definition that we have worked with for community engagement, a dynamic relational process that facilitates communication, interaction, involvement, and exchange between an organization and the community for a range of social and organizational outcomes. So our starting point was that it was very easy to see that the general civic engagement was kind of eroding in society, and we needed some kind of cure for that. We were thinking very much about how can we go from just our interaction with the general public being informing and giving access to information to a more interactive way of working with communities. So we would go from informing to involving. Instead of giving just access to information, we would facilitate exchange and sharing. People were alienated to politics. We wanted civic engagement. We wanted active participants. We wanted to build social coherence rather than seeing that social capital in society was kind of eroding. So trying to make our mutual problems not a problem for politicians or civic servants, but make it our mutual problem. Moving the complexity of society from the expert domain to a kind of public domain, looking for opportunities rather than just being concerned with work. So we were, of course, using the public participation spectrum, where I would say in the starting point was we were about informing and consulting, and that was not only the libraries in Denmark, that was the general public sphere. But we have certainly moved up to a much more collaborative and empowerment-oriented way of interacting with our communities. And what does that look like? These are just examples of co-creations in the library. Here we are working with young people, doing workshops and using the library facility, the different meeting rooms and so on for these different formats of human engagement. Here we are doing idea pitching sessions with the general public, doing user-driven design. We are embarking on a new way of distributing children's books in the local society, and we are working with mothers and fathers in the local community to find the best way. Working with focus groups, doing World Cafe idea workshops for different developments in the local communities, vision creating with the general public, and facilitating all kinds of different formats for ideation and for finding solutions to different ways. Whenever we launch a new service, a digital service, for instance, we would do a participatory design, a number of sessions, and in this case, it's usability testing, elderly people for one of our digital services. We work with children. The children are our prime users, and they will use the libraries for most of their lives. So it's important to have the children's voices. In this case, it was about building a new main library, And you can see the guy on the left-hand side, he's documenting what the kids are saying while they're building it in cardboard. So we get their expectations and embed that into the architectural competition. A download session, this girl, she was talking about, she wanted to hear birds singing in the light. And eventually we couldn't figure out how to work that in the beginning, but eventually we installed 2 soundscapes in the library that can emulate bird singing. So the different formats could be seminars, election meetings, and we have, the libraries are very versatile, so we have both social and communal spaces, self-organized by the users. This is a social space where people talk, they meet each other, they have a high intensity meeting, also down on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, we have the communal space. That's where people see the otherness of the others. And there are not too many spaces left in society where we see all walks of life. We don't have necessarily to engage or talk, but we see the otherness of the other, see that they are no threat to us. They are also people, they have aspirations and life just like anyone. So in that sense, the libraries are really important physical places, bridging and bonding in the libraries, using creative play as a vehicle for development and creation, engaging with elderly, going out of the library, finding out what the aspirations and ambitions are of elderly people, doing homework with visits to understand the reality of people, to build new services together with people and have their say into it, and doing social activities and bridging with the community. So a specific area that I have very much encountered when I was in the US for 2 years, working as a professor of practice, is of course the enormous social challenges. We don't see them to the same degree in Denmark, but they certainly are there, of course. And in general, we see this enormous economic shift from the post-industrialism to new types of jobs. A lot of people have challenges adapting to new realities, and that is costly. There's a lot of underserved communities, particularly in the US, and the libraries are playing a very active role in creating relationships with socially excluded people, working with excluded communities, trying to respond to their library services wants and needs, and identifying systemic barriers to library use for socially excluded people and trying to erode those barriers. So it's very important for the libraries to have these policy issues debated, and also being a vehicle for promoting these problems also to higher level decision making in society. So in that sense, the libraries are also being a kind of a bridge, you could say, for that kind of discourse. So what we do in libraries is to from a point of view of finding the assets in the local community and work in partnerships with different assets. It could be individuals, it could be NGOs, it could be associations, it could be organizations, it could be schools and businesses, etc. So the library is a part of, you could say, a network of assets. In almost any community, there are these different assets that could be activated. If we work together on common goals, aims for development of community with the community, there's a good chance that it will happen. And this is how it looks in Aarhus, where I come from. So we go out and work with the local communities. Sometimes it's very important to identify also communities that sometimes are being sort of squeezed out. You'll be a part of the plus community. So there are different roles that the libraries play in terms of when we look at the perspective of community engagement. One is the library as a first responder and safe place. And that role is extremely important in US, where libraries very often are the first places that people go to when there's flooding, when there's a storm, when there's a hurricane, if there's a great a number of homeless or people experiencing homelessness in the local society. The library is the place where they will often go. And because of that development, the libraries need to develop also their practice as first responders and safe places. There's also the issue of what you could call a local cultural heritage. The library as community memory bank, because there's so many communities that are not registered, that are not, their artifacts are not put into museums. Their stories are never told. So the libraries act as a place where these narratives can be built and there can be created a kind of a history for this local community and the people of it. And then we have the role of the library as a democracy hub. Because of that low participation in the civic society in general, the libraries can be those places where the democracy issues are being put into practice, where people discuss in a timely way and find solutions for their own society. And of course, the safe place for all. There's also an issue of the library as an innovation. This is from one of our branch libraries, Gellerup. We have a large number of refugees and immigrants. And the fantastic thing about that is that this is the local community members that are solving their own problems. They are contributors. They are not clients. They are not receiving something from the society. They are building their own society and doing their own solution. And they are doing it in this network of NGOs, individuals, associations, and the library form a kind of frame for that and facilitates those innovations and solutions. So to sum up, the lessons that we have learned as institutions where I come from is that we need to get out of the library. We need to meet people where they're most comfortable. We certainly need to make partnerships to network on all levels and address community needs in all our spaces and policies. The culture of co-creation and co-production is something that we have built over the years. We are getting better at telling compelling and illustrated stories. That's the one that you have just heard. We are trying to integrate our user-generated knowledge into all our services. And the piece of advice I'll offer here in the end is that you need to have time and patience. Start small activities, follow that. Thank you. I think that was what I wanted to share.
Thank you very much, Rolf. That was hugely inspiring presentation. I'm very pleased to see libraries. Libraries are my favorite places, by the way. I love libraries, all those books, all to myself. But it's great to think of a library not as a passive place, as a storage for books and learning, but as a very active organization that reaches out and tries to include people in, as you said, solving their own problems. And I would like to emphasize this notion of a safe space that Marlon also mentioned. You know, there's institutions that we see as basically being there as, you know, something removed from society where we go in special occasions. Their opportunity to act as, you know, open spaces for people to come in, maybe even sit down and relax and, you know, chat with other people, meet other people from all walks of life. And I really love this, you know, idea of a library as a first respondent, first, you know, the place where people go when they're in need.